It was a week before the wedding, and I still hadn't heard anything from my sister Lily. Not an invitation, not a phone call, nothing. At first I thought I was just being paranoid. After all, weddings are stressful, and maybe she just hadn't gotten around to sending it yet. But as the days went by, I began to wonder if I was really being left out. I had always been close to Lily. Growing up, we were inseparable. We shared everything from clothes to secrets, to our dreams of the future. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, things had started to change. It was subtle at first, a little comment here and there, a tone in her voice that felt colder. I chalked it up to life changes, but the signs were becoming hard to ignore. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I tried to brush it off, but the silence was suffocating. Finally, on the fourth day, I worked up the courage to call her. "Lily, are you still planning on inviting me to your wedding?" I asked, my voice shaky. There was a long pause before she replied. "Of course, why wouldn't I?" Her words sounded empty, almost rehearsed. I could tell she was distracted. "I just haven't gotten an invitation," I pressed, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "Oh, that," she said. "I'll send it over soon. Don't worry about it." But the truth was, I was already worried. I waited for days, checking my mailbox, refreshing my email, hoping for some kind of communication. But nothing came. The more time passed, the more my frustration grew. Then, 3 days before the wedding, I found out from a mutual friend that Lily had already sent out all the invitations. The wedding had a strict guest list, and I wasn't on it. I was devastated. My own sister, my best friend, hadn't thought to invite me to one of the most important days of her life. It felt like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, cry, do something to make it stop. But all I could do was sit there, stunned and in disbelief. I couldn't keep this bottled up. I needed answers. So I called her again. This time, her voice was curt, like she was already anticipating the confrontation. "Lily, what's going on? Why wasn't I invited?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. She sighed heavily. "I didn't think you'd want to come. You've been distant lately, and I didn't want to cause any drama." I was floored. "Distant? We've barely spoken in months, sure, but that doesn't mean you cut me out of your life completely." She was quiet for a moment before responding, her words sharp and dismissive. "Look, it's just a wedding. You're overreacting. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I'm sorry if you're hurt, but this is what's best for everyone." I couldn't believe it. She was making me feel like I was the one who was crazy for even caring. Like my feelings didn't matter. "Just a wedding?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "It's not just a wedding, Lily. It's your wedding. And I'm your sister. How could you do this to me?" Her response was cold and final. "I'm sorry, but I've made my decision. I can't change it now." That was it. There were no apologies, no explanations, just an icy distance that I couldn't cross. I hung up the phone, feeling like my world had crumbled. How had things gotten this far? How had we drifted so far apart? My heart ached as I thought about all the memories we had shared, all the love we once had. But now, it felt like all of that had been erased in one swift, careless decision. Later that evening, I told our mother what had happened. She sat across from me, her expression unreadable. "You're exaggerating," she said, her voice soft but firm. "It's just a wedding. You're making too much of it." I stared at her, shocked. "It's not just a wedding, Mom. It's about family. It's about love. She's my sister, and I'm not even important enough to be there." She waved her hand dismissively. "You'll get over it. It's her day and she gets to choose who's there. You can't take it personally." But I did take it personally. How could I not? This wasn't just about a wedding, it was about being discarded, about feeling invisible. My mother's words didn't comfort me. In fact, they made everything worse. It was like everyone was telling me that my feelings didn't matter. The day of the wedding came and went, and I stayed home. I didn't even know if I was more angry or heartbroken. I tried to fill the void with distractions, but nothing helped. I wasn't just missing out on a wedding, I was mourning the loss of my sister, the loss of a bond one thought would last forever. In the end, I realized that sometimes people outgrow each other. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can't go back to what once was. And as much as it hurt, I knew that I had to learn to live with it. Because in the end, nothing, no wedding, no family gathering, could undo the way I felt in my heart. It's been a few months since the wedding. Life has moved on for everyone else, it seems. Lily and I still haven't spoken much. A few texts here and there, mostly about family events or distant pleasantries, but nothing that would make me feel like we were close again. Every time I see her name pop up on my phone, I'm filled with a mix of anger, sadness, and something I can't quite name. It's not even about the wedding anymore. It's about the way she dismissed me like I didn't matter. What stings the most is the quiet distance. No grand gestures or angry confrontations, just the slow, insidious way she pulled away. There were no arguments, no fight. Just a quiet, unspoken separation that left me questioning everything I thought I knew about my sister. I started noticing how much the wedding still loomed over me. People would talk about it, mutual friends, relatives who were there, and I'd smile through my teeth pretending like I didn't care. They'd ask if I'd enjoyed the wedding or if I was looking forward to the next family gathering, and I'd nod, but inside I felt this weight I couldn't shake. I couldn't even look at the photos. When they started popping up on social media, I had to scroll past them quickly, my stomach tightening each time I saw the beautiful ceremony, the perfect pictures, and Lily with her new husband looking so happy. I felt like an outsider in my own family, like I wasn't even part of their story anymore. I tried to reach out again. After weeks of silence, I sent her a message. "Hey, I miss you. Can we talk?" The response was almost immediate. "Sure, let's chat." It felt too easy, like she didn't even think about it. But I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Maybe this time would be different. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop, somewhere neutral, somewhere that might make things feel less heavy. When I walked in, I saw her sitting at a table by the window, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I approached, offering me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I took a seat, and for a moment, there was an awkward silence between us. "I'm sorry," she said finally, breaking the silence. "I know I've hurt you. I didn't mean to." I stared at her, unsure of what to say. The words I had been rehearsing in my mind for weeks caught in my throat. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to ask how she could do that to me. But another part of me just wanted to hear her explain, to hear her side of things, even if I wasn't sure I could forgive her. "I just don't get it," I said, the frustration creeping into my voice. "I thought we were close. I thought I mattered to you. And then I find out I wasn't even invited to your wedding. Felt like, I don't even know, like I didn't matter anymore." Lily's face softened, but there was a hesitation in her eyes. "I never meant for it to be like that. But honestly, things have changed between us. I've been struggling with our relationship for a while now. It wasn't just the wedding. There were things I felt like I couldn't talk to you about. I felt my chest tighten. So you just shut me out?" She looked down at her coffee, avoiding my gaze. "It wasn't intentional. I didn't know how to make things right. You were always so strong, so independent, and I felt like I was the one always asking for your help. I thought if I kept my distance, maybe I'd figure out who I was on my own. I didn't know how to respond. I had always been there for her, always tried to support her in whatever way I could. But I hadn't realized how much I had been doing it on my terms, how much I had been assuming things about her feelings." "But why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "Why didn't you just talk to me? We've always been able to talk." "I guess I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid you wouldn't understand or that you'd think I was weak. I didn't want to burden you with my issues, especially when you had your own stuff going on. And then, it just got easier to distance myself. And before I knew it, I'd built this wall between us." I sat there, stunned, my mind reeling. It wasn't what I had expected. It wasn't the answer I was hoping for, but it was the truth, and it hurt. I had no idea she had been feeling that way all along. I had no idea that I had been so blind to her pain. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said softly. "I never meant for it to get this bad." I looked at her, my heart aching with a mix of anger and sadness. "I just don't know if I can trust you again. It's not about the wedding, it's about everything else. About how you just left me out. How I wasn't enough for you to talk to." She nodded slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I understand. I don't know if we can fix it, but I want to try. I miss you too, more than you know." And there, in that moment, I didn't know what to do. There was so much pain between us, so much that had been left unsaid, that I wasn't sure if we could rebuild what we once had. But maybe, just maybe, we could start over. One conversation at a time. Because even though I was hurt, I wasn't ready to give up on us completely. Not yet. Weeks passed after our coffee meeting, and though things weren't perfect, there was a tentative sense of progress between Lily and me. We still weren't the sisters we had once been, but there were small steps, and for the first time in a long time, I started to feel like maybe we could find our way back to each other. We started talking more regularly, but the conversations were fragile. Every time I spoke to her, I felt like I was tiptoeing, trying to avoid stepping on cracks that might shatter the fragile connection we were rebuilding. I was still angry, still hurt, but I wanted to believe that we could fix things, that this wasn't the end of our relationship. But the distance between us was more than just physical. It was emotional too. There were things she hadn't yet said, things I wasn't ready to ask. Every time we hung up or said goodbye, I'd feel that gnawing emptiness again, the knowledge that we were still strangers in many ways. It was frustrating. Then one day a text message from her caught me off guard. "Can we meet up again? I need to talk." I didn't know what to expect. It had been a while since we'd had a real conversation, and something about her message made my stomach churn. But I agreed, hoping this was a step forward. When we met, I could tell something was different. Her eyes were darker, more tired. She looked like she hadn't been sleeping well, and there was an anxious energy in her that I hadn't seen before. We sat down at a quiet cafe, and before I could say anything, she jumped in. "I've been thinking about everything we talked about," she began, her voice unsteady. "And I realized I've been holding something back from you. Something that might explain why I acted the way I did." I felt my heart race. I wasn't sure if I was ready for more secrets, but I had to know. "I've been dealing with some things I didn't want to burden you with," she continued, her hands shaking slightly as she spoke. "I didn't just shut you out because of the wedding. It's everything. I've been struggling with my mental health for a long time now, anxiety, depression. I didn't know how to talk to you about it because I didn't want you to see me as weak or broken." I stared at her, stunned. It wasn't something I had expected, and I could feel my anger shifting into something else, something softer yet more complicated. "You could have told me," I whispered, my voice thick. "Why didn't you? I would have been there for you." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I know, but I couldn't. I didn't want to be the one to drag you down, to make you feel responsible for fixing me. I thought I could handle it on my own, but it got worse. And I pushed everyone away." I sat back, trying to process what she was saying. I had always known Lily to be strong, to face the world with a smile, even when things were tough. I had never imagined that beneath it all, she was struggling in silence. "Lily, you don't have to go through things alone. You've never been a burden to me," I said, my voice catching. "I would have been there no matter what." She wiped her eyes, looking down at the table. "I guess I never realized that. I've always been the one who everyone leaned on, and I didn't know how to ask for help." The weight of her words settled over me, and I felt both an overwhelming sadness and a deep compassion for her. I had spent so much time being angry at her for pushing me away, but I hadn't understood how much pain she was hiding. I reached across the table, placing my hand on hers. "You don't have to hide it from me anymore, okay? We're in this together. You're my sister. I'll always be here." She smiled, a small, bittersweet smile, but the relief in her eyes was undeniable. "I've missed you," she said softly. "I've missed us." "I've missed us too," I replied. "But we've got a lot of work to do, don't we?" She nodded, squeezing my hand. "I'm willing to try. I know I've made a mess of things, but I'm ready to fix it. To fix us." It wasn't an easy conversation, and I knew it wasn't going to be an easy road ahead. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could rebuild what we once had, piece by piece. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I thought about everything Lily had shared with me. How much pain she had been carrying, how much she had hidden from everyone, including me. I realized that our relationship had never been perfect, but it was real. And maybe, in the end, that was enough. Maybe there was room for us to grow, for both of us to heal. It wasn't going to be overnight, and there were no guarantees. But I knew this. I wasn't ready to give up on her. And I didn't think she was ready to give up on me either. So we started again. And this time we did it together. It's been a few months since that conversation. Things between Lily and me are still far from perfect, but they're better. We're trying. Every day is a step forward, even if some days feel like 2 steps back. But I'm learning that healing doesn't happen in straight lines, especially when you're trying to rebuild something as fragile as trust and love. Lily's been opening up more, though not always in the way I expected. She'll send me a message out of the blue, small things she's learning in therapy, or just random updates about her day. It's not always deep, but it's progress. And progress is what I've learned to appreciate, even when it feels like a slow crawl. Our conversations have become less about the past and more about the present. We talk about our lives now, the little things, the funny moments, the things that have nothing to do with the wedding or all the painful years leading up to it. For the first time in a long time, it feels like we're actually talking to each other instead of around each other. But there are still days when the weight of everything feels heavy. The unspoken words, the lingering hurt, the memories of a sister who used to be my best friend and is now a stranger in some ways. I still find myself aching for the closeness we once had, the way we used to share everything without hesitation. Last week we spent the afternoon together, something we hadn't done in years. It felt like a small victory, though I tried not to make a big deal out of it. We went to the same park we used to go to when we were kids, walking along the paths and talking about our lives. It was just a normal day, nothing extraordinary, but it was everything. We were walking by the lake, the sun beginning to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows over the water. I glanced over at Lily, who was walking beside me, her eyes focused ahead. There was a quiet comfort in the way she was walking, a sense of peace that I hadn't seen in her for a long time. "Do you ever think about how things used to be?" I asked quietly, the question lingering between us like a fragile thread. She hesitated, glancing at me before looking back at the water. "All the time," she said softly. "But I try not to let it hurt anymore. I try to appreciate the time we have now, even if it's different." I nodded, understanding what she meant. It wasn't the same and it never would be, but maybe it didn't need to be. Maybe what we had now was enough, in its own way. "I've been thinking about the wedding," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. I felt my stomach tighten, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I don't think I ever really told you how much it hurt," she continued, her voice low. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought that if I made the decision I could avoid the mess, avoid the confrontation. But I was wrong. I hurt you anyway." I stopped walking, turning to face her. "Lily, it's okay," I said softly. "It's in the past now. I'm not holding on to that anymore. I want us to move forward." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine as if she wasn't sure if I was being honest. "I don't deserve you. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You don't need to deserve it," I said, shaking my head. "It's not about deserving, Lily. It's about us. I'm choosing to forgive because I want to. Not because you've earned it, but because I need to let go of the hurt. We can't move forward if we're still holding on to all the pain." She was silent for a moment, and then a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "I don't know how I got so lucky to have you as a sister." I smiled back, feeling the familiar warmth in my chest. "We're both lucky. We're lucky to have each other, even if we've messed up along the way." As we continued our walk, I realized that even though we weren't the same people we used to be, we were still sisters. And maybe that was enough. There was a lot of work left to do and a lot of pain to work through, but we were doing it together now. And that was what mattered. Later that night, as I sat alone with my thoughts, I reflected on everything we had been through. The hurt, the distance, the silence, it was all part of our story now. And while it wasn't perfect, it was ours. The journey wasn't over yet, but at least we were walking it side by side. One step at a time. It's been almost a year since Lily and I started this slow, uncertain process of rebuilding. The distance we had once felt is now a bit smaller, though it hasn't completely disappeared. I still find myself catching myself in moments of hesitation, still unsure about whether I can trust everything completely. But I've learned to accept that healing isn't linear and sometimes it's messy. We've had tough days, days when the past feels too heavy to ignore, and the words still seem to hang in the air, unspoken. But there have also been good days, real moments where we laugh, where we share things, where we don't feel like strangers anymore. It's those moments that I hold on to, knowing that little by little, we're getting back to something good. Lily has been going to therapy regularly and I can see the difference in her. She's stronger, more open. She doesn't hide herself as much anymore. And as she gets better, I'm learning to get better too. I'm learning how to support her without carrying all her burdens for her, how to be there without feeling like I'm responsible for fixing everything. It's a delicate balance, but I'm figuring it out. The last time we hung out, we went to a cafe and spent hours talking about everything and nothing, family, life, books, the dumb things we'd done as kids. For the first time in a long time, it felt easy. There was no weight hanging over us, no past to carry. Just two people sitting together, enjoying each other's company like we used to. That day, as we were saying goodbye, she gave me a long, tight hug. "Thank you," she whispered into my ear, "for not giving up on me." I pulled back slightly to look at her, a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "I could never give up on you. You're my sister. We'll always figure it out." As I walked away, a quiet sense of peace settled in me. I didn't have all the answers. We still had work to do, still had our scars, our histories. But I realized that we had something more important now, the willingness to try, the courage to show up, and the understanding that it's okay not to have it all figured out. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined, and maybe it never would be. But it was real. It was us. And that was enough. In the end, maybe that's all we really need, our loved ones and the simple act of showing up for each other no matter how broken or complicated things might seem. We're stronger for it together. And that's a kind of love that's worth holding on to.